I'm just calling it out here. I've kind of fell into this trap too of when you're sitting there designing a full landing page like this, you have all this logic behind how you're building it. You can have a tendency to kind of forget that users don't see the whole landing page at once, and they don't like sit down comfortably with a cup of coffee and slowly read your entire landing page from top to bottom right there on a mobile phone, and you don't know what situation, and they're probably distracted by all kinds of stuff. Another thing that I think about quite a lot in my work and that I recommend you to as well is the first two screenfulls versus the rest of the page. So the first two screenfulls are crucial, extremely important. And this goes back to how many people are going to see which elements of the page. So I say the two first screenfulls. Well, obviously the first screenfull is paramount because that's, basically what 100% of users are going to see. But often the behavior is that on mobile, they'll just quickly just scroll down a little bit and then up again. So the first two screenfulls, that's what most people are going to see. So that's absolutely crucial that you get those right. So I kind of have a tendency to think of those as a separate experience from the rest of the page. The rest of the page, of course, is very important and so on. And if you structure it correctly, that the people will see the rest of the page. But as far as being safe or also just giving them a reason to stay on the page to enforce motivation, well, most bang for your buck is in the first two screenfulls. So be really, really careful about how you design those. I showed you already some examples of it. And then also going back to the characteristics of an effective landing page, making sure that the landing page is a relevant follow-up on the ad. Again, that goes back to the first couple of screenfulls. So when I show you an example here of what I think is a pretty effective first two screenfulls. This is from Shuel, and it's a landing page for these instant lunches. They have a premium version of instant noodles, essentially. You'll see I've kind of shown where the first screenfull stops and where the second screenfull starts. So the way they've structured it here is they have an image very clear showing the product exactly, in use case situation, it's very clear what it is at the top. Then they have a trust element there from Trustpilot. They have a very clear call to action there. And they have the trust element showing that they've been mentioned in all these publications. And then they have their first content section underneath there. So this is very, very clear. There's very little friction here. One thing I would say though is I think that their second screenfull, that content section could be a lot better. And essentially what I just do is I would do this a little bit further down on the page. They have an overview of these different kinds of instant lunches here, the different flavors and so on, which is super relevant. And I think it's just a little bit kind of wasted space here because it's pretty obvious, the different use cases for this instant lunch. If you initially think it looks like a good offer and a good product, then natural follow-up question is, what are the different flavors? So with this here, that slight change, well, then we have a super clean and clear first and second screenful experience, enforces motivation, answers questions. It seems trustworthy and credible, very low friction on all parameters, and there's a very clear path to conversion, both literally and figuratively speaking. So here's an example of the opposite, a very unclear and not very clean example of a first screenful. This is Asana. So a couple of things here. They're causing a lot of cognitive friction here, interaction friction too, because they have these competing banner things there with I think maybe it's the app they're asking me to get, and there's an invitation for a webinar. It's just taking up a lot of space in the first screenful here, which is just adding cognitive friction in the sense that I kind of have to figure out what is actual content that's relevant to me here and what isn't. And there's some formatting issues too, the way they've center aligned the headline makes it difficult to read, and also just create more than just project timelines is not saying a hell of a lot. So I think this is, to me, an example of a very poorly executed first screenful example.